Hello everyone, welcome to Informatica Support Videos. This is Ashik Salim from Informatica GCS, and in this video series we'll see how to write IDOCs to SAP in Cloud Data Integration. These are the topics that will be covered in the part 1 of this video, that is what is an IDOC, the SAP IDOC Connector Administration, SAP IDOC Writer Connection Creation, and SAP IDOC Maplet. And we will see a demo of all of these topics. So IDOCs are electronically exchanged data between SAP applications or between SAP application and external programs. So this is nothing but an intermediate IDOC which is used to transfer data from SAP system or to SAP system. And it mainly contains 3 record types, that is control record, data record, and status record. The control record will have all the information about the message type, document number, from which system it is sending, which is the expected system to receive the detail, and all those information. Data record will be the records that will be containing the actual data that need to be transferred, and the status record will capture the current status of the IDOC, that is whether it is sent from the SAP system, whether it is part support, whether it is dispatched, and all those details. And this message-based architecture of the ALE has 3 layers, that is application layer, distribution layer, and communication layer. Then moving on, the IDOC connector in Cloud Data Integration. So for the IDOC connector in Cloud Data Integration, these are the prerequisite steps that are needed to establish this particular connection. So we need to download and install Microsoft Visual C++, that is if our secure agent machine is on Windows. Then the second step will be download and configure the SAP libraries. So this step includes downloading the SAP RFC SDK libraries and as well as downloading the SAP JCO libraries, and we have to place it in the particular location. And for regarding the JCO libraries, we have to maintain a Java lib property at the data integration server also. All this information is detailed, explained in the product documentation, which I will be showing at the end of this. And the third step is defining the SAP connector as an external logical system in SAP. So in this step involves creating a partner profile, port, and RFC connection. So when writing to a SAP system, as we know, like we'll pass the data to SAP, post that the processing has to be done by the partner profile, so that for that this external logical system will be needed. Next is the configuring the SAP NWRFC in a file. So for this particular is IDOC writer connection, the type of connection we need is a type A connection. That means it will have a destinatory which we will be using in the connection. Along with it, it will have an AS host and a system number. So this is in the direct application connection, and with the load balancing connection, we will be using MS host group and the R3 name. So it will be a direct application connection. Next step is to configure the SAP user authorization, that is for the user to have all the privileges to write to SAP. Then for this particular, we need an SAP IDOC writer connection. So this is a sample of this. We will see more details on this on the demo. Then for an IDOC maplet. So when we create the IDOC maplet, we have 2 options. That is, one is using the table data connection, and one is using a local file. That will be creating a local file from SAP and importing in the CDI. This IDOC maplet will be an IDOC prepare maplet. So those who are familiar with the IDOC reader connection, we will be creating an IDOC interpreter maplet. The procedure for all of them will be same, but the difference is like we will be using an IDOC prepare here. So these are all the properties in the IDOC maplet. So first is the transformation type. This is what I mentioned earlier, like IDOC prepare is used for writing the source data as an IDOC message. And the source will be like how we want to create the IDOC maplet, that will be using a table connector connection or a local file that is created from SAP. Next is the transformation scope. So it has a transaction and all input. So real-time data that is used in IDOC reader needs transaction, but here we have an option of selecting either transaction or all input. Next is a message type. This is a type of application messages that classify the categories of data at the SAP end. Then under the message type, which is the basic IDOC type we want, then if we are having any extended data type, extended message type, we can mention that also. Next is the IDOC document. So it displays all the IDOC segments, and then the segment names comes and the description comes. Then we also have an option to see the minimum occurrence and maximum occurrence of the particular segment, and we can select whichever option, whichever segments we want under that are optional. Some, as we know, like some of the parent IDOC segments are mandatory. Other than the child segments that are mandatory, we have an option to whether select it or deselect it. Then the control record. So the control record determines all the necessary mandatory data that needs to be transformed from the system. Post this, we'll move on to the live demo session. So this is my administrator page. I've gone to the connections and I'm going to create a new IDOC writer connection now. I'm going ahead with the connection creation because like I've already created all the prerequisite required for this particular connection. So I'm going to give a name for this one. The type will be SAP. The runtime environment, I'm going to select the whichever secure agent agent group where I want to run this particular connection. Then the type will be SAP and the SAP connection type will be IDOC writer. Then we have to give the username and password that we are going to use to log into the SAP system. Then in the connect string, I'm going to give the dest entry I've given in the SAP NW RFC file. So this will be a type A connection, and I've given the type dest entry for the same. And the code page, we will select the code page of the SAP system. For me, that is UTF-8. Then the language of the SAP system, and the client code. So test connection is not supported for any type of connection that is under the type SAP. So there is no point in doing the next connection. So I'm just going to save the connection. So the connection is saved successfully now. So I'm moving on to the maplet creation. I went into the data integration section. I'm going for new. Under maplets, there will be SAP IDOC. I'm going to create to it. Then I'm just going to give it a name. So in the transformation type, as mentioned, IDOC for writing to SAP as IDOCs, we have to select the IDOC prepare type. In the transformation scope, I'm selecting all input as well. And in the connection, I'm going to select a table reader connection that I already have. In the message type, I'm going to use ALEAUD type. So this type, as we know, is usually used to send acknowledgements back to whichever sender that sends an IDOC to SAP system. So for the ease of this demo, I'm just using that one. Then I'm going to give a fetch IDOC. So it has returned the IDOC segments under this one. So you can see even state and even probed. So this, as we can see, it is an optional segment. I'm not selecting it just for this demo. So these two are mandatory. We can see the minimum occurrence is 1 and this is the maximum occurrence. Similarly, when we are writing to SAP system, the IDOC prepare, we can have an option of defining the control record also. So some of the tabs under the IDOC or control record is mandatory. Like you can see, there is no option to deselect this or select this, but these other options we can select or deselect. And as we see, this IDOC type, the message type, and the sender port are actually mandatory when we are writing to SAP. So if we don't give any value, so if we do not create already add this in the maplet and map it to a particular value, these default values will be taken. So we have an option of giving it here instead of in the mapping, and we have it will be overwritten if it is mapped in the mapping also. And these two ports like SNT PRT and the SNT PRN, these are actually key pairs, so these two values are needed, otherwise the data will be sent to the SAP system, but at that level, since there are no partner profile mentioned in the IDOC sent to the SAP system, it will fail at the SAP. Post this, we can save this one and use this maplet in the mapping. For the demo purpose, I will also use how to use it using the local file. So the local file I've already created. For those who have already watched the IDOC reader demo, they know the steps for the same. It is properly documented in the product documentation. We have to go to the T code RSC IDOC 3 and give the basic type and save it as an IDC format. And that file we have to use here. So this is an IDC file I have created for this demo. So I've already fetched the one. So since we are using a local file to import the metadata, we have to select a runtime environment. So I'm just selecting the runtime environment. Then we have an option to fetch IDOC. So it would also fetch the segment similar to the old one. So all the data will be same, just that the connection is different here. We can just save it and the IDOC maplet creation will be completed. That concludes the end of the demo in this part. You can refer to the below documentation on more details on the IDOC connector administration as well as the creation of the IDOC prepare maplet. In part 2 of this video series, we will see how to use the IDOC maplet we have created in this demo in a mapping and how to write it to the SAP system. We would love to hear from you regarding this support video as well as the other support videos. You can write to us on supportvideos@informatica.com or contact us through our Twitter handle. That's everything in this video. Thank you everyone for watching.